to 22. Proverbs in the Old Testament, chapter 26, verses 20 to 22. A couple more seconds. Proverbs 26, 20 to 22. It's also on the screen for you. And let's read it all together because it's fairly short. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without a gossip, a quarrel dies down. As charcoal to embers and as wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome person for kindling strife. The words of a gossip are like choice morsels. They go down to the inmost parts. And then I want to show you on the next slide what it says in a different translation. So if you just take a look. And let's read that together, because it's a little bit different. I think it's a little bit more clear. Or is it the same? No, yeah. Fire goes out without wood, and quarrels disappear when gossip stops. A quarrelsome person starts fights as easily as hot embers light charcoal or fire lights wood. Rumors are dainty morsels that sink deep into one's heart. So this is the New Living Translation, and the first one that we read together is the NIV. And I think this is a little bit more easier to understand, especially verse 21. So that's why I have it up for you. So I want to start off by saying, I don't know if you've heard like some news, but I do want to share something. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to let you know, but honestly, I think I should let you know. I heard it through the grapevine, but it's such big news that I think it impacts all of us. And church is kind of like a place where we pray for each other and we're concerned for each other, correct? Yes. So I feel like I can share this with you. So there's a family that has 2 kids in this youth group. And so the parents are fighting a lot. So this is what I'm hearing. The parents are fighting a lot. The kids are here in the youth group. I won't say who because, they might be sitting here. But I know that this mom is really stressed out, constantly fighting with the dad, and I think we really need to pray for this family. I heard that he's sleeping on the couch or something, not positive, but something like that, and the kids are really down, really depressed, and if you see depressed kids, it might be that family, right? So keep on, look out for depressed looking people. And I think they're having a hard time with money, and I think they promised their kids to go on some trip, like a Disneyland trip or something, and they've been trying to save money for that because they made the promise, and so they're fighting a lot. But you never know. I didn't really like the dad anyways. I'm not gonna say who, but I'm not that person's biggest fan, FYI. And I don't know, I don't think parents fight that much about vacation, so it might be that maybe he's having an affair at work and he got caught. I don't know for sure. But maybe that's why, I don't know. And that's why they're fighting, because the mom totally found out, he's seeing another person. Can you imagine? You're married and it's just terrible, just terrible. Like I said, I really like him anyway. So before you ask me which family, because we do need to pray for this family, it's urgent. I want you to know that everything I just told you is a complete lie. I just made up the whole story to make a point about gossip. So what I did just now was total gossiping, all in the name of being at church and being a part of a community where we're expected to pray and care for one another. And I use that to share with all of you a complete lie, which is total gossip. Maybe some parts of it might be true, but most of it, I'm not even sure if it's true. But I just went ahead and told you anyway. And I asked, we should all pray for that family. And I even said, hey, if you see some depressed kids, maybe it's that family. So all of those things I said, is gossiping. And today's sermon is all about the toxicity of gossiping. Gossiping at school, gossiping at church, gossiping wherever you are. And I can argue with you all day and say, oh, I'm a youth pastor, and I completely, I did say that I didn't like the dad too much, but if he's having an affair, I shouldn't like him anyway. That's another bad, judgmental thing to say, right? But I can use the fact that I'm a youth pastor to share all of this or to have inside knowledge about a certain family and then just keep talking about it to all of you. And then I hold you like a captive audience and you don't know whose family it is. So you're waiting for that moment. Whose family is who's the kids? Who's the kids? They girls or they boys? Girl, boy? Are they in this room? So I'm holding your attention and I keep spewing the gossip. So if you want to kind of dissect or figure out the themes of my narrative, I said things like, I just heard. I just heard through the grapevine, through other people. Not even sure, but I heard. I bet that's why. I said something like, I bet that's why maybe they're fighting because he's having an affair. I'm not sure exactly. Maybe, I kept saying, well, maybe. I heard she or he. I never really liked that person. And I keep inserting these common phrases that gossipers typically use when they like to tell stories about other people. So I completely gossiped. I talked about someone who was not here to clarify, and I didn't even identify who the kids were. They might be sitting here, but they can't raise their hand or pull me aside after service and say, Pastor Helen, I think you're talking about my family, but half the stuff you said isn't true. Because I'm not saying who the kids are, so they can't defend themselves or clarify. I was careful and very secretive, so the whole family couldn't find out. The kids could be sitting here, but wondering, is she talking about me? Because my family's going to Disneyland. Are my parents fighting? Oh my goodness, does she know something I don't? I made assumptions about a person and a whole family, and I made judgments based on things I was guessing to be true, or something that I heard from another person. Not the source, not the person, not the family, but I heard from another person about that family. And I was totally nosy, totally being nosy. All the characteristics of a true gossiper. Nosy, judgmental, doesn't have their facts straight, but they like to talk. And you know what? If that story was a real situation, I would have lost some really great friends and hurt a whole family. And sometimes they would find out that I was talking about them, and sometimes they would not find out I was talking about them. But that story keeps on going from place to place, from mouth to mouth. We are all victims of gossip at one point or another in our lives. It's unavoidable. We all are guilty of some gossip at some time in our life. We also gossip too much about, we also gossip too much about other people, and we may be the victim of gossip as well. And I think I'm a victim of some gossip. When you're in the kind of work that I do, like at a school district, there's always gossip. There's always gossip, especially when I was new to the district that I was working in. I think people were wondering, what's she all about? And so so people would gossip and say things like, well, I heard when she was working in Seattle Public Schools, she did that, or she said that. Could be true. And I think even now, as a youth pastor, there's a lot of wonderings that people have about my family. People wonder, oh, what's going on there? Hey, that's kind of what? And then they keep on talking. And they make unfair assumptions. Nobody ever comes to me to ask if they have a wondering. That's the difference between a gossiper and someone who actually has a wondering. If you really have a wondering, you'll go to the person and then just ask in a very respectful, polite way, just ask. But a gossiper never goes to the source. never goes to that person. They go to everybody else around them to ask that wondering that they have in their head. Like I said before, at one point or another in our lives, we either gossip or end up being gossiped about. So today, we are going to be studying the book of Proverbs, again, like we did last week, as we try to figure out how to get along with other people and live in peace. And gossiping is counter to living in peace. Gossip creates a lot of conflict. It's harder than it sounds to live at peace with those around us, but it's totally possible. And God uses the book of Proverbs to help us figure out how. We are fickle humans who are easily offended, nosy. We're quick to judge, slow to offer the benefit of doubt to anyone. We are totally quick to speak. And the quicker you are, people think, oh, she's pretty cool, he's pretty cool. The slower you are, do they have some kind of mental delay? Why are they so slow? So being quick with our mouth is often rewarded in our society. And generally, it's hard to handle complex relational dynamics, but it is possible. God designed us to be in peaceful relationships with other people. So we don't have to live in conflict. But we need wisdom. We need God's help to get along. Not people who, I see people who get along with others really, really well. And there are some books that help you get along with people well. Sometimes there are people that just know how to navigate difficult situations and all of those things. But I think God is our perfect source for being able to live in peace. It's not simply because we want to be a good person or feel a sense of tranquility in our hearts instead of the dread or anxiety that can come upon us because of the social situations that we're faced with. We need wisdom to get along because we want to love and honor God and bring Him glory by truly loving other people. We cannot call ourselves Christians if we don't truly love other people. Remember Jesus' greatest commandment. His commandment was, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor. So simple. It doesn't just say, love the Lord your God all by your lonesome and you'll be set. Jesus said, love the Lord your God and love your neighbor. We can't do that if we are gossiping. Gossiping is toxic. I don't know how people learn how to gossip, but we're so good at it. Even a 5-year-old. I heard a 5-year-old. I was visiting classrooms. I heard a 5-year-old talk. She was literally this small, gossiping. You know, she said, I think my teacher has a stomach ache. I'm like, why is that? Because I was visiting classrooms one day at work. Why is that? You look worried. I am worried, she said. Because she's crouching over like that all the time. So it must be that her tummy hurts. I'm like, I think she's trying to bend over to pick up something. And she just kept saying to one kid after another, I think our teacher's tummy hurts. Like, that's not true. If you really want to know, go ask your teacher, does your tummy hurt? So I went over and I said, does your tummy hurt really loud? She said, no. And I said, look, her tummy doesn't hurt. So stop talking about it. We learn how to gossip. We learn how to make assumptions and we run with them. And we keep telling other people. So let's take a look at a bunch of Proverbs today that will give us some insight on gossip. God is going to help us along. He definitely will today. And there is hope. There is hope that we can do this. We are going to be teachable and coachable people. You are going to be teachable and coachable, including myself, today, and soak in what the Holy Spirit is about to speak to us. So if you look at the next slide, I want you to take a look at some of these. Proverbs 11:13. It actually uses, the NLT version actually uses the word gossip. So it must have been around during Bible times too, not just in our lifetime. A gossip goes around telling secrets, but those who are trustworthy can keep a confidence. Proverbs 16:28, a troublemaker plants seeds of strife. Gossip separates the best of friends. Proverbs 10:18, hiding hatred makes you a liar. Slandering others makes you a fool. Proverbs, next slide, sorry. Proverbs 18:6-7, fools' words get them into constant quarrels. They're asking for a beating. The mouths of fools are their ruin. They trap themselves with their lips. And the last one, Proverbs 11:9, with their words, the godless destroy their friends, but knowledge will rescue the righteous. So many references to gossiping and how it's unhelpful to us and everyone around us. So did you know that magazines are still a thing? I'm always surprised when I go to the grocery store and I see magazines. Because every information you can possibly need and want is at your fingertips through your cell phone or our devices. But when you go to the grocery store and you're getting in line to pay, there's a magazine rack. That's been going on since the 1960s or even the 50s and the 40s. Magazines are still a thing. And for some strange reason, I can't help but read the front headlines of some of the tabloids, like the Inquirer, whether I'm at Walmart or QFC, Target, or any grocery store. Our eyes are drawn to these magazines that seem so ancient. I don't know one person who actually buys a magazine, but I can't help but look at them. Why do we do this? Why do we love seeing gossip about people we don't know? That's basically what the magazines are trying to sell. If you take a look at them, there's some food like Seattle something, best places to eat in Seattle or something like that. And then all the rest of them are like people, the Inquirer. Why do we want to know so much about people we've never met? How do you think those human beings feel about being put on magazines day in and day out for the whole country to see with stories that are mostly untrue, if not all untrue? Why do you think so many celebrities spiral into addictions, either drug or alcohol or sex, and have so many mental health issues, even though they're so famous, they're so rich? They have everything it looks like that they could possibly have, but they have such inner struggles. You know, life as a teenager is hard enough, and I would never wish fame on any of you. I'm so glad none of us are famous, because that's just stressful. Those feel like more tame examples of the perils and detriments of gossip, but I think of other examples that hit closer to home and make you realize how serious it is to kick gossip to the curb and just stop. Think of a show I would never recommend anyone watch. Please don't watch these. Like, I'm going to just list them. 13 Reasons Why, or think of Gossip Girl or Outer Banks. They all show the deep damage that gossip can do to others. Then there are like funny movies. We call them funny, but they're really not, like, you know, the classic Mean Girls. They're actually really sad movies disguised as comedy about a bunch of girls who are just nasty and mean to other people. I'm sure many of you have gossiped about others just today or just even yesterday. You're being a bully without realizing it. You're lying or telling half-truths. You tell stories about others maybe because you think it makes you more likable or popular. And some people just like to share gossip because they love thinking that they know everything about everybody. I know many adults like this. They seem to know about everybody's life. And they share it openly, without permission. Because they love feeling that they are in the know, that they know something the average person doesn't. It makes them feel very special. But many of you have also been gossiped about and hurt. It destroyed the trust you had with someone. It made you question your own value and worth and whether you're lovable. That's what gossip does. It helped the victim question themselves. It alienated you from people who you thought were your friends. God wants us to get along. He wants us to love others. And just like Romans 12:9 says, don't pretend to love others, really love them. And how do we do this? How do we do this? We need to see people as human beings, as people who are imperfect just like us, just like you and me, as people who are in the process of being better just like you and me. People are fighting very real battles that you don't know about. People are made in the image of God, regardless of how different they are from you. Their beliefs may be different. But still, we continue to gossip about other people, even though we know that we're made in the image of God. It would be so easy to want to gossip about Regina. That's a character from Mean Girls. She obviously deserved it. She was nasty. I mean, she was one of the nastiest characters I've ever seen. Just look at how terrible a person she was. But not really. She was just a character in a movie. But if she were real, she would be just as loved by God as anyone else. So sometimes we gossip about somebody because we think they deserve it, because they're nasty. That person gossiped about somebody else anyway, so now it's their turn to be gossiped about. And you happily volunteer to do that. It's payback time. It's easy to go after someone who displays mean behavior, and then we use that as an excuse to gossip about them as well. And if you look at her home life, this character, it was terrible. She never showed it to anyone, but it was terrible. Her mom only tried to be young and to be her friend, which is inappropriate. A parent is not your friend. She was insecure about her weight and the way she looked all the time. And listen to what C.S. Lewis, the author of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, said. There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal, and our charity for them must be real and costly love. There are no ordinary people in this world. They're all image bearers of God because they were created by Him and for Him. We need to heed God's instructions to us through Solomon in Proverbs to mind our own business, assume the best in people, give them grace, and when they fail, think before we speak, like we talked about last week, and treat others with respect, even when they are vastly, vastly different from us. We need to keep our eyes on the goal, which is to love God and love our neighbor. You know, you've heard people say you need to keep your eyes on the prize, the goal. And as Christians, we do have that goal, and it's to love God and to love others. Somebody asks you, why do you do this church thing? It's to love God and to love others, because He has loved me, and He has saved me. Again, C.S. Lewis said in that same quote that we need to have deep feelings for the sins in spite of which we love the sinner. No mere tolerance or indulgence, which parodies love as flippancy parodies merriment. So, that's kind of hard to understand, but he was saying that even when we think someone deserves to be talked or vented about, we love them without accepting what they did was okay or right. Sin is sin, and it breaks the heart of God. We don't sugarcoat sin here. We should never lower our standards or holiness or change our beliefs to fit what is popular. Instead, we need to recognize that we are all sinners, not looking at the speck in someone else's eye when we have a plank in our own. And when we should get God, when we should let God bring justice rather than thinking we should punish them with our words too. God does that. We don't get to punish anyone. Proverbs 17:9 says, whoever would foster love covers over an offense, but whoever repeats the matter separates close friends. A gossiper always succeeds in separating friends and causing trouble in a group. God is pricking our hearts today convicting us in ways we have failed to get along with others because of gossip. He wants you to see the damage that it can do. He wants you to embrace the humble love of Jesus, that at his very nature, he forgave. Love covers over an offense. Forgiveness covers over an offense. How did Jesus do this? How did Jesus do that? On our most worst day, when we were gossiping about everyone, snapping at our parents, disrespecting our teachers, laying around all day in laziness, or living in pride, thinking that we are very religious and that we're the best and we're so much better than others, that is the day Jesus came and forgave us. On your worst day, Jesus gave his life for you. He did not wait for the world to ask for forgiveness to come. He came willingly. He kept the promises that he made all throughout the Old Testament and fulfilled them in being born of a virgin, living a perfect life as both God and man, enduring a torturous, slow death that we actually deserved, and even being willing to be separated from God for a short time in order that we would never have to be separated from God ourselves. Jesus is the definition of forgiveness. He is the epitome of perfect love, and he loves you. If you really know that Jesus deeply, deeply loves you, I think you would think twice about hurting others intentionally. He wants to make you a brand new creation. He wants to restore your relationships. So think about the relationships that you have. Are they joyful? Are they peaceful? Think about you in a circle of friends, or think about you with another person that you spend a lot of time with. Do you bring joy and peace? Do you bring gossip, separation? What do you bring? Jesus is the ultimate example how we should get along. He was gossiped about. Jesus was totally gossiped about throughout his entire life, and yet he remembered who he was and who he belonged to. So right now, if you're that person who's being gossiped about, and you know it, because usually people know, don't be sad, don't be discouraged. Don't try to pay them back. Just know who God is and who you belong to. You belong to God. It's only through him that we can get along and live in peace. Let us pray. During this heart prayer time, I'd like for you to think about your relationships one more time. Think about the role that you play in those relationships.